Hello and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Zach Kazan. I'm the editorial director at Worn and Wound. Joined today by Kat Shoulders. Kat, how's it going? Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
You were in California, Los Angeles, I believe, last week when we recorded for IWC, which is what we're going to be talking about mostly on this podcast, is what, why you were there and what you can share from that trip. And maybe you'll tease a little bit about what you can't share in a way that honors all the embargoes and NDAs I'm sure you signed.
Yeah.
Because there was a much discussed new release from IWC that you wrote about, and that was kind of like all over Watch Instagram last week. So we're going to talk about that watch. Yeah. And we're also, I think, going to talk about some other, just kind of like glut of pilot chronographs that have been released. I see kind of a link between them and the IWC. We're in like a weird season for chronographs right now. So we'll talk about those, and we'll do that right after a wrist check. What are you wearing today, Kat?
I am wearing my Clements Monroe today.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I had actually a listener from the Gray NATO Slack actually reach out yesterday, and I guess he was listening to a past episode where we were talking about field watches, and I had talked about this watch, and he couldn't really make out what I had said the brand name was, and so he sent me a DM, and I thought I hadn't worn that watch in a while, so I put it on today.
Yeah, no, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Clements, we'll see them, I think, at British Watchmakers Day. Zach and I are heading to London in just a matter of days.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And I believe Clements will be there. And it'll be fun.
Yeah.
It's a really fun event. I'm glad we get a chance to
I'm excited
go
for
to
you
that.
guys. Yeah, for sure. What are you wearing today?
I'm wearing my Ming Uni today. There's a new release from Ming this week. I just kind of like I wear my Mings frequently, but it just felt like. Also, it's sort of like thematically linked with the watch we're going to talk about. This is a watch with a black coated case, and the watch we're going to talk about that you wrote about and saw last week is also notably black.
Yeah.
In tone. Controversially.
Do you know what kind of coating the Ming has on it?
I don't have the top of my head. It's a steel case. Yeah. It's not, so like the IWC that you're going to talk about is a Ceratanium watch, which of course is not a coated watch. It's just the color of the material. I'll post a link to the Uni article that we wrote in the show notes so folks can verify the actual type of coating. I'm sure we wrote about it there, but I don't know off the top of my head what kind of coating they use. But anyway, IWC, tell us what you can about your experience in Los Angeles for IWC. Why were we in Los Angeles this year for the IWC preview?
Well, that I can't tell you yet.
Okay, we can't even talk about that. So
I can't tell you why we were there. But I will say that IWC does know how to throw a press event. They're very good at it. All of the ones that I've been on over the last, I would say 4 years that I've been here at Worn and Wound have been really incredible, very planned out. This was actually a little bit different because it seemed to me they had international media there as well. So it wasn't just like the small sort of U.S. group that I typically see at these events. But I guess I have to be really careful about what I say. I think people will be really surprised this year. We obviously got to preview a lot of what's coming later this year at Watches and Wonders. I think I certainly was surprised with some of the releases and very excited. It's going to be a very exciting year for them as well as other brands. But one thing that we did get to go hands on with, and I can talk about, is the new Portugieser that's in Ceratanium. And this watch honestly had sort of mixed reactions when I first saw it. So they were doing a presentation of the watch, and they had a big screen behind them, and Chris Granger was talking about it. And as he was talking about this watch, they actually had models walk out with the watch on their wrist. So instead of trying to like pass the watch around immediately, we were all going to get hands-on time with it later in the day. But I don't know. I really liked the aspect of seeing it on a model first thing, like or seeing it on a person. So they just kind of had a male and female both wearing this watch, kind of walk around a little bit. And
were you like close enough to like see them?
Yeah, they were like right beside us, like walking kind of through us and just around, and almost like they were on a runway, but like they weren't far. They were just like right next to you, and putting their hand in their pocket, they were doing some different poses and stuff. But it was the first time I had kind of experienced kind of a launch like that. And instead of just immediately been given the watch to, fiddle with and play around with, they had it on the models. And I at first glance, I loved it. Like, I thought it looked great, especially on, I think, a female's wrist, which, I don't know if you agree. I think Ceratanium sometimes has a very masculine appeal and an effect. And I don't know. I thought the all black on this like very nice curved rubber strap, it didn't seem overly masculine. And maybe that's also the Portugieser case too, because I don't feel like it is as masculine as like the big pilot, necessarily.
For sure. Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's Ceratanium's interesting. I've owned a Ceratanium watch in the past. Ceratanium is a really cool material that they've used, I think, exclusively to this point in their Top Gun line, which is not just their their pilots watches. It's their like most aggressive kind of like tech forward, like hyper masculine, like pilot's watches, in a lot of different ways. So like Ceratanium has kind of like lived in that world in IWC. And obviously IWC is a huge brand. Like they make all different kinds of watches. They make, watches that are, that have like high-end complications. They make tool watches, they make dress watches, they make jewelry watches, like they do everything.
Absolutely.
But it's like Ceratanium has like always existed in this like little corner of like kind of like tool focused pilots watches. And now it doesn't. And I think that's really interesting. And that's something that you write about in your in the write up. You kind of like you close with like kind of saying like no watch is safe from Ceratanium, which
I think is kind of cool. I mean, I would have never, if I had to guess a watch that they would have used this material on, I would have never said the Portugieser line, because to me, it's always been very dressy. It's been a little bit more refined, but I like that they are using it here. I think it opens the door to, again, any watch in sort of their catalog to be turned into this kind of like very sporty. I mean, to me, that is what it did. It took the Portugieser Chronograph, which I don't think was very sporty, and turned it into a sports watch just by difference of material and obviously the black on black on top of that. Now, what I would have liked to have seen is, because it's now sort of a sports watch, I would have loved to seen like lume applied, which I think would have maybe helped with the legibility of this watch, which is really its downfall, if we're being honest. Yeah,
it doesn't appear to be very good. And that was sort of like that was a lot of the commentary that I saw about this watch coming out of that launch was centered. It was around legibility. So I thought we could kind of talk about like black watches, blacked out watches, like this trend, because this was like a really big. I remember this being like a pretty big trend. Maybe like 10 years or so ago, like just like the black on black, the quote unquote murdered out watch, which is a term I always hated.
Sounds
but
so
like,
bad.
Yeah, it really is kind of bad. But like that's sort of what this reminds me of.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like, what's your relationship to blacked out watches, just in general? Was that ever like something that was appealing to you personally? Have you ever owned a watch that like fits in that category?
Yeah, I've owned several actually. I think I've owned a blacked out like Seiko Turtle, limited that they did at one point. I currently own a Hamilton Khaki Field that's blacked out that I really like with the black DLC coating. I'm a fan in the right context. I guess it just really depends on the watch itself, but I do tend to like black cases when done properly. I like them, even though they are and can be more masculine, aesthetics to the watch.
Yeah.
I can gravitate toward them easily. What about you? Yeah. I mean, you've owned obviously the Ceratanium Top Gun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wearing the Ming right now, obviously, which I like a lot. I like the aesthetic of it. I really like that Ceratanium chronograph that I owned. I owned the Pilot's Chronograph 41 Top Gun Ceratanium, I think is basically what it's called. IWC naming conventions are sometimes a little tough to wrap my arms around, but I've written about it, and I'll put a link in the show notes for articles on that watch. So like my relationship to blacked out watches is a little, I don't know, it's a little different. Like for me, a watch that's blacked out, it can't be totally blacked out. Like this Portugieser is like not appealing to me personally, just because it's like it's the black on black thing. Yeah. I need like a little bit of contrast, and that's why I like this Ming, because it has it has like color in the dial, and it has like these strong white and orange contrast, and it's very legible.
Yeah.
My Ceratanium Pilot's Chronograph had indexes that were gray.
Yeah.
Which I think on most watches would kind of like read almost black, but against the Ceratanium, like there was contrast there. It was actually like pretty easy to read.
Yeah.
that's not the direction they went with this watch. I'm wondering, like, why do you think they went black on black on what is ostensibly a dressier watch? Does that like make it like a little more sense even in some way? I'm kind of curious. Like, it's very curious decision.
I can see their point of view in keeping this watch maybe more formal, and that they kept the numerals very polished, but they are black. And when you hit the watch in a certain light, you can read it. It's very legible. But I would say unless you're hitting the dial at the right angle, it's difficult to read.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to photograph. It was the hardest watch I think I've had to shoot in a while. But yeah, I think they wanted to make it so sporty, I would say, without going too far down the road of making this a tool watch. And I think if they had added lume and added some of these other features and added maybe even the gray effect that they did, I think that would have changed what the Portugieser is. And so I think, honestly, I think this is an offering for, like what I was going to say, I don't think this is someone's only watch. I don't think this is a watch that someone one and done buys. I think this is a watch that someone's adding to their collection. I think this is a watch that is for current Portugieser collectors or people that like this watch and just want something that's like kind of different,
Yeah, I mean, I would say I was going to, add to that like this is probably not someone's like only IWC. Like this is probably a watch for like an IWC collector, someone who's like interested in Ceratanium. Like it might not even be like your only Ceratanium watch. Like it's such an interesting material. So I don't regret like selling my Ceratanium watch. I traded it in for for another watch that I love. But like I would like to own another Ceratanium watch at some point, just because like the material is so cool. It's this titanium alloy that IWC developed, I assume with a partner, I would imagine. But they developed a titanium alloy that when you heat it at very high temperatures, it takes on this dark color and takes on qualities of ceramic. So it's basically unscratchable. And I'll tell you, like I wore my my IWC Ceratanium Pilot's chronograph like daily for multiple years. Like I owned this watch and I did not baby it. And when it came time for me to trade it into a dealer, they had no qualms about the condition, like because there was not a scratch on it.
Yeah,
and it was just like it's just kind of like this remarkable thing. Did IWC kind of like go into the details with you on Ceratanium and like what that was?
No, not really. Not for this launch in particular. I will say, just wearing the watch on the wrist, it wears incredibly well. Maybe just I don't have a lot of experience wearing the Portugieser line, but this chronograph specifically, like it was a 41 millimeter, it's like 13 millimeters thick or something like somewhere around that, and to the point, like the Ceratanium, it's very light, super lightweight. It's on this like sort of curved rubber strap that was also incredibly soft and malleable. And I don't know, it just like it wore really, really well on my wrist, and it was very comfortable. And like I would love this watch had it not been for like the legibility issue with it. It does suffer, I think, like from obviously the price increase that's happening across their all of their collections as well as other brands as well. It's like under 15, 14.6. For this piece. It's limited edition also, which I honestly imagine that these are going to sell really fast because, again, to your point, I think this is like an IWC collector's watch. This is something that I think IWC fans are going to purchase to have in their collection. But I just found it like really incredibly comfortable, and I did really like wearing it a lot. The Ceratanium too. There's like a matte finish to it that I have DLC watches. This really like. You don't even get fingerprints on it almost. It's very cool. Like it's a very unique material. And if you've never seen one, like I encourage you to like, try to, maybe they have these at the boutique, go try to, try it on or look at it. It's very, very neat. And then I do like on the case back, they sort of have the smoked effect, which I think you had on yours too, of the sapphire case back, which is just like a kind of a cool feature because it just adds to like this all blacked out kind of watch and feel a little bit. But
what was your relationship like to the Portugieser before?
Just not for me. Like I feel like it's not my favorite chronograph. It's never been one that I've gravitated towards because I would say I like more tool watches. So this just wasn't really for me. You know, it's very dressy.
Yeah. The Portugieser was always kind of a, it's also like not my favorite like IWC collection. I think that it's like, it really is pretty unique though, because it's basically a dress watch collection that's conceived as like these like kind of oversized watches because they're based on like historical references that use pocket watch movements. So it's like they're all kind of big by design, and there's like an anachronism to these like kind of, you know, very nicely finished traditional looking dress watches that are all kind of like 40 millimeters and above. Yeah, I have to be honest. I haven't like spent a ton of time with Portugiesers over the years. I've always kind of gravitated more towards the more sport watch oriented and tool watch oriented IWCs. But this watch is like I'm curious about it. I would like to see it in person. I imagine we will have a chance to see it in person when we're all in Switzerland next month. Wow, next month we're in Switzerland. That's crazy. Yeah. But yeah, I like this idea of IWC expanding like the Ceratanium stuff to other collections, and it makes me think like, could we see like Ceratanium, you know, like dive watches and other other pieces. Like it's really really cool idea, I think.
Yeah. On that note, I think I saw a comment in our Slack group that said they'd love to see this in the Aquatimer, you know, collection. I think that would be really cool. I think an Aquatimer would look pretty hot, honestly, in a Ceratanium case.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm all for using Ceratanium wherever possible. Yeah, excited to see what they do with it in the future. I think this is a good note that they're using it on this line for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's probably like the least, like if I had to like pick like another line for IWC to like expand Ceratanium into, like the Portugieser would be like the last one I would think of probably. Maybe Da Vinci also would be like extremely unlikely, but like that would be. But yeah, no, it's cool to think that they, you know, that they're playing with these materials in different ways in different collections. Let's talk about some of the reactions to this watch, because this watch generated a lot of commentary online. We asked folks in our Slack channel about it. I would characterize the reaction as kind of, well, as mixed, kind of like, you know, similar to our reactions to it. I think people are interested in the material, but like I'm getting I'm getting a sense that people are like maybe a little over like the black on black thing. Like this is maybe something that people some brands are trying to bring back. And I don't know that people really necessarily want it, at least in the like enthusiast community. How would you kind of characterize the reactions? What did you think when you started? It's always interesting when you like see a watch in person that like not a lot of people have seen, and then you start seeing commentary on it. It's like, what were your thoughts when you started reading some of the commentary on this watch from people who might not have seen it?
I think I wouldn't disagree with most of them, just based on the contrast of the dial and sort of the legibility issue. I think a lot of people, even from, you know, IWC's own renderings of this watch, could tell that it was going to be a hard watch to read at a glance. I did my best with the photography, showing some hands-on pics of it. But yeah, I think initially like that reaction I sort of agree with. Now, I will say like there's some reactions on Instagram that I don't agree with, things like, this looks like a fossil watch, or
that's like the most cutting like I noticed that comment as well.
Yeah.
Like that's the,
or
like,
a Nixon. Like I don't see that necessarily. I don't quite know where they gather that from. Maybe I'm also not as familiar with like a lot of fossil watches, or movement is another one that I see someone comparing this to. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing the mark a little bit there. I don't see the comparison, but
I think that comes from this like idea that like fashion watches kind of like leaned into that black on black sort of like murdered out thing. And there's this, I think it's also somewhat true that like when you do like the black on black, it's kind of hard to differentiate your watch from like any other black on black watch. Like it's just all black. So it's a real challenge to create something that looks different from, say, like a murdered out fossil.
Yeah.
When you're doing a black on black Portugieser. And like obviously like the fit and finish of the IWC is going to be like significantly better than your fossil or your movement watch. But I think that like I understand the criticism from, you know, from like a higher level up where you're not actually like handling the watches. Like they're black on black watches. Like they kind of like just like sort of avoid, like they all sort of like look the same if you're not taking like a super careful close look.
Yeah, but I think that could go, you could say that about a lot of things. You could say that about any Flieger for that matter, because they all kind of look the same. And you could say that about,
I think I probably have said that about Fliegers, honestly.
Or even certain dive watches, I think there's a general look that these watches have that they can't deviate from totally. But I do agree. I think maybe the time for all of these blacked out watches has sort of passed in a way. And that was, to your point, like 5-10 years ago. And we saw a lot of these fashion brands do that. And now IWC is doing that with this sort of dressier piece, and maybe seems a little late for it. But at the same time, Ceratanium is kind of newer for them too. It's a newer material, and they're wanting to use it in other ways. So like I see their point of view as well. But I will say, like, in contrast to the Instagram comments, which really did a lot of comparing to much cheaper brands, the Slack comments, our enthusiasts seem to side with the fact that they did like it in Ceratanium. Their only issue was legibility. So I would say that I think this watch sort of wins over the enthusiast crowd, just the fact that it's not very legible in all sort of lighting situations is really the downfall of this piece. But it's just two different audience. I think when you put something on Instagram, we're getting comments from people that don't know a lot about watches, don't follow us even, that just happen to see this as they're scrolling through their feed.
I just had a thought. I'm thinking back and thinking about IWC's Ceratanium watches. They always have like dark dials, like either black or like gray dials. I wonder if they would ever like do a Ceratanium case with like a brightly colored dial. Like that could be kind of a cool thing to experiment with, and it could like solve a lot of these. Obviously, like you take the legibility thing. It's a different watch, obviously, if you do that. But like, I wonder if IWC would ever like, just make a Ceratanium watch with like, like a blue dial or gold dial or like some, like contrasting color. They're all very monotone.
If this watch had gold numerals and gold hands on that black case and the black dial, that would have been incredibly legible. And
it also feels more in line with like what the Portugieser is too. Like that's kind of like more of a nod to like the Portugieser, like heritage and
I think
history.
that'd be super cool. Really, really cool. I did get a comment about like not loving the integrated strap, which I have to just completely disagree, because I think the integrated rubber really just adds to the sportiness of this watch. I'm glad it's coming on rubber instead of a leather strap. And I think it just adds a cool effect to it.
Yeah. IWC straps are great. And I'm guessing the buckle was Ceratanium too. Yeah. Little details matter. That's important. Any like kind of like closing thoughts on the experience that you had with IWC or this watch before we kind of shift to like talking about some other chronographs that just happened to drop within the last like few days?
Well, like I said, I had a great time in LA. I can't wait to obviously share everything that we saw. And yeah, kudos to IWC for like thinking outside the box, I think, a little bit, and surprising people. I think that's always a good thing. Whether people like it or not is always going to be debatable, but I like to be surprised. So, and it doesn't happen often anymore.
Yeah,
as we work in this industry, so kudos to them. And again, they put on a great event. Even again, how they showcased the watch on models before they handed it to us. They put a lot of thought into how they wanted to present this piece, as well as others too. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, the ability to surprise is like a hugely important thing, and like honestly, it's something that you don't necessarily expect from like an enormous brand like IWC. Previewing Watches and Wonders novelties, or at any time really, because these brands have to like cater to like a very large market, and it's risky to do something surprising. So yeah, like when a brand like IWC can do something that is genuinely like unexpected, like I think that's worth noting, even if the watch isn't necessarily for you. Like this watch probably is not for me. Like I said, I'm curious about it, but like it's ultimately probably not something that I would like want to own. But that's like kind of beside the point. Like they're doing something a little bit different, trying new things, and that's noteworthy. I think. And it also kind of like in a year where there's a lot of uncertainty, in the watch market because of, the reactions to tariffs, which is just like ongoing drama and just sort of like the world economy in general. Like, I think there's this idea that a lot of brands are going to kind of like play it safe, for the foreseeable future. So like any little risk, I think, any little surprises, I think is notable and worth acknowledging. So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
You want to talk about some other chronographs that I think?
Yeah.
So there just happens to be like 3 that I picked out, notable chronograph releases, all kind of in like the pilot chronograph sphere in one way or another. And obviously the Portugieser Chronograph is not a pilot's chronograph, but it's linked strongly to like IWC's pilot's chronographs because of the Ceratanium, material that they're using. So it just seemed like a, noteworthy thing and maybe an opportunity to kind of like comment on some new releases that have all been getting, quite a bit of attention from the enthusiast community. The first one I thought we'd talk about is the new Benrus Sky Chief chronograph. I read about this watch the other day. This is so Benrus sort of like went through kind of like a rebranding process over the last like year or so. They were kind of making like much more affordable watches that were like nice looking, but maybe not, didn't have like the best fit and finish. Like let's say, like cool watches, affordable watches, enthusiast focused watches. But I think that like there was always some criticism that they were maybe like, they could be better, and so like they kind of like moved up in price point to a higher price point over the course of the last year and have some like kind of, I would say, like more refined offerings. And the Sky Chief is, I think, maybe the most interesting watch that's been a part of that new strategy. It's a reissue of a classic Benrus reference from the like 1940s, a classic 3-register pilot style chronograph. The thing that's really notable about this watch is that the proportions are very similar to the original watches that were made.
I'm seeing that.
So the original watches were around 35 millimeters. This is 36.
It's great.
Which I think it's always worth giving brands credit for doing that. I think a lot of brands feel pressure to kind of like go up a little bit further in size, when they're making the new version of the old watch. And Benrus really stayed pretty close to the original. And I would imagine the primary reason for even going up a single millimeter is just because of the movement being used. You have to use a modern movement that's a little bit larger, on these. Did you have a chance to take a look at the Sky Chief? Do you have any thoughts on this watch?
I actually really like it. Initially, just at a glance, I'm not a huge fan of like the silver dial, but the darker sort of matte black or sunray black dial I do like. And honestly, like that's a watch, just looking at it, they have a wrist shot on their website. This watch would do really well in this sort of blacked out case, I think. It would look awesome. But I'm a fan of what Benrus does. And just looking at the specs here, like 36 millimeters, only 42.5 lug to lug. Like that's going to wear really well on so many people's wrists. I also like that it's 100-meter water resistance, which you don't always get with a chronograph. So that's a nice feature to have as well. Yeah, I think like this watch packs a huge punch. It has the BGW9 Super Luminova. So you've got great lume on this thing, anti-reflective coating. You screw down crown, like all of the things that I think an enthusiast would kind of like look for in like a checklist of a nice chronograph. This sort of hits. So really excited to maybe see this in person soon.
Yeah, we have one coming to the office for review. So we will definitely have some hands-on coverage of this watch at some point in the near future. I think the one potential downside, and something that's been commented on, kind of like in the watch enthusiast sphere already, is the price point relative to the movement. So this watch retails for $3,950, which is a pretty significant bump up from like typical Benrus, if you've been following the brand over the last several years. This is a more expensive offering from them, and it runs on an ETA 2894 movement, which is kind of a not the most advanced chronograph dial. It's a modular movement. It's been around for a while, and there are other watches that use I think you could probably argue better, more modern movements that are available for less. And so like kind of that brings us to the next watch that I think we can discuss, which was actually just announced as you're hearing this morning. And that's a new watch from Hanhart, actually a pair of watches from Hanhart. These are desert inspired. They have these beige dials. It's the It's the Hanhart 417 TI Desert Pilot limited editions. There's a 39 millimeter variant and a 42 millimeter variant. They're identical beyond like case size and proportions. These use a hand wound AMT by Solita movement that's, has just like much more advanced, like column wheel, chronograph, and it's a little less than the Sky Chief.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I feel like that's maybe a more compelling.
Okay, they are titanium. I was going to say the case doesn't look steel, so these are titanium.
They're titanium, which is another, another difference from the Benrus. But like I think it's interesting that these watches are kind of like out, at around the same time for like around the same price point.
Yeah.
I'd actually like to get these Hanharts in for review, as well. It'd be a good comparison, I think, to the Benrus. But yeah, it's I like this watch quite a bit. Zach Weiss sent me we both got the press release, and he sent me a note like saying like, oh, these are like actually like really, really nice. I know he's a sucker for this kind of like colorway, but I'm very intrigued by these.
Yeah, they look great too. I love a tan or cream dial. I'm a sucker for that colorway, and these look incredibly sporty. I like the titanium case, and the movement is just it's really beautiful.
It's a flyback column wheel chronograph, so like that's a significant upgrade in functionality over the movement in the Benrus, and it's like I said, it's a slightly less expensive watch. I mean, we can call they're about equal, like maybe what you pay at retail. Like it turns out to be kind of a wash in price, but there is a pretty notable difference in the movements being used on these watches, I think.
Yeah, and these are limited to 200.
Yes, they are. The other watch that I think is worth discussing is something that Zach Weiss wrote up last week, and it's a new offering from Sinn, and it's a watch that I think sometimes we forget that Sinn has in their catalog. It's a Sinn 903, which is sort of a if you were a cynic, you could call it a Breitling Navitimer dupe. But of course, those in the know that Sinn bought the rights to the design of the Navitimer at a time when Breitling was in like kind of like financial straits, and they've been making the 903, kind of like on their own terms, for quite some time. But it has all the same sort of like structural features of the Navitimer. It has the the slide rule bezel, the same chronograph layout. The dials look very similar. This 903 is it's titanium. It has this like cool blue dial with silver sub dials. Classic 903/Navitimer layout. I think it's a really cool watch, and just like I always forget that the 903 exists until they issue like a new version of it. And I think this is a pretty good one.
I'm just 41 millimeter. Okay, 48.5 lug to lug, not too bad. 14.5 millimeters tall, so it's quite thick, but it's pretty normal.
It's chunkier.
22 millimeter lug width. Don't love that, but I'm breaking this apart because I'm seeing it for the first time. I've never been a huge fan of the 903. I also I'm not a huge Navitimer fan either. It's very busy dial for my taste. But I like this blue. The blue is very nice. I like the contrast with the red. The pops of red that it has on it, and for it to be also titanium, there's like a lot of like high polishing on this watch too, which I feel like is a little bit of a different take than I think I would have imagined they would have done.
I mean, Sinn obviously does a lot of titanium, but like I'm just kind of like thinking through Sinn's watches. It's usually like a pretty tool oriented kind of like kind of look that they go for, a lot of brushing and bead blasting. So like this is a kind of a different sort of titanium execution for them for sure.
Yeah, and maybe they're trying to reach a little bit of a different audience too, with making it super polished with the polished links and the case.
Yep,
it's not bad. It's not what you expect, I think, from a titanium piece in general. But it's cool looking.
It's also a limited edition to celebrate an anniversary, so it's the 30th anniversary, I think, of the 3.
Yeah, I see that here.
So that could account for, some of the, kind of like upgraded, finishing elements, and like they're presenting this as like a special watch.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just thought it was worth kind of like mentioning the 903, just because maybe you're like me and you forget that the 903 is out there, because it is kind of like this weird, like it's very unlike other Sinn watches, because like it is another brand's design that they've owned the rights to, for a very long time now, and because of that, it's sort of like it just fits it's a different thing for the brand. Like it doesn't sit in the Sinn catalog cleanly like the way that like most Sinn watches kind of do. So it's an oddball.
While we're on the topic of chronographs, do you have currently a chronograph in your collection?
You know what? I don't have a chronograph in my collection.
I don't either.
Yeah. I don't know that I necessarily want one. Like, so like another watch that came out this week is the new Ming Phoenix, which is sort of like, paired with the Iris, part of their new 57 series case, case design with the kind of dramatic, like Art Deco inspired lugs. And it's a monopusher chronograph. And I kind of had the thought for a second, like maybe I trade something in. Maybe I trade in the Uni for this, because I really love the case.
Yeah.
But I just have I just don't really have a desire to own a chronograph.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
And I've owned a bunch of chronographs, but right now I just I don't know, it's not appealing to me. Like it's a complication I never use. Like I never use a chronograph for any sort of practical reason. It's really just cosplaying for me, which I don't love that.
Yeah.
So you currently don't own a chronograph either?
No.
Does that mean you got rid of something recent?
Yeah, I traded my Speedmaster.
That's what I was thinking.
Probably maybe before the end of the year last year.
Oh, okay.
But I've owned I think I've owned like 5 or 6 Speedmasters in like sort of my lifetime of collecting. I've owned IWC Big Pilots. I feel like there's something else maybe owned, maybe even like a Young Hands Max Bill chronograph in the past. I've owned a variety of different chronographs, and it's not for me. And I accepted that. And the last time when I sold off my Speedmaster, I told myself, Kat, do not buy another chronograph, because they just don't last in my collection. Again, it's not a complication I really use. I don't know. I just really right now I'm sort of in this sort of either GMT or dive watch sort of phase. It's really where I'm gravitating towards, primarily GMT watches or world timers, etc. But I just I've accepted that I'm not a chronograph person. So maybe there's one that will win me over down the road. I don't know, but as
it's important to accept your taste when you find it, and lean into that. Like there was a period of time where I owned I'm trying to think, I owned the IWC and a Bell and Ross chronograph.
Oh yeah.
And another IWC chronograph, I think, and a Speedmaster all at the same time.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was just too many chronographs.
Yeah, I find it interesting when people sort of collect, like they have to have a diver in their collection, and they have to have a chronograph, and they have to have a field watch or explorer type watch. And that's a way of collecting, I suppose, especially if you really don't know what you like. But I've been fortunate enough to be able to buy and sell a lot of things. And I think I just know I'm not a chronograph person.
I've never really approached collecting that way, like trying to fill a box. I get the chronograph, get the field watch, etc. I've always just sort of I wound up with all those chronographs because at the time, I just wanted those watches. It had nothing to do with the fact that they were chronographs. I just
liked them.
Yeah, I just thought, man, the multimeter is so cool. I need to own that. It had nothing to do with the fact that.
Did you ever sell that one?
I did sell it. Yeah. I sold it on eBay.
Oh, really? I was going to say, I wish I would. Yeah. I was kind of curious on if it was someone we knew,
it wasn't anyone we knew. Believe me, if I hadn't sold that watch by now, you'd be hearing about it on the podcast every week. DM me about the multimeter. Please take this watch off my hands.
To this day though, you're the only person I know that really owned that watch.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I've just never seen it. Like, I've never seen it on anyone. I've never seen it posted online by anybody.
we're all just ashamed, of of our multimeter ownership. I was the only one that
I
would
still thought it was
publicly.
cool.
It was
Yeah.
cool. I was. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a good example of a watch that like I I was really happy to own. I really enjoyed it, and then at a certain point, I just realized I don't need this anymore. I've gotten my fix. Like it's I don't actually want to wear it a lot. It's just sort of like an object that, I get some like aesthetic, joy out of sometimes, but like there's other things I could like turn this into that I would actually enjoy, like, owning and wearing more. And like, it just became clear to me that like it had to go. But it's like, it was a good lesson to kind of understand that like, sometimes watches sort of have like a season to them, and like, you don't need to, like maintain like a grip on something, just because like you really wanted it at one point. Like it's okay if it sort of like fades and you develop another interest. But
some
yes, I was able to sell it. So
yeah, good. Yeah. Congrats, eBay buyer.
Yes, congrats. Yeah, congrats to eBay for collecting those fees. I did not. Yeah, listen, I'm not saying I'm financially ruined. I didn't do well on that on that sale. It all worked out.
I can't believe that you owned all of those at like around the same time. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, because I had so I had like I said, the IWC, the Ceratanium IWC. I had a 3706 at the same time.
Yep.
And the multimeter. And I think I also had a Speedmaster at the time. I could be wrong about that, but still, that's like three.
Yeah.
Like that's three real chronographs there, like kind of all at once. No more
icons too. Yeah.
Crazy. Well, in a manner of speaking, the multimeter is an icon in its own mind.
Future icon.
Future curiosity. I still think that like that watch could have like a collector's moment because of the way that it sort of looks like the rings on an Apple Watch, like a very like it's clearly they like were going for that.
It's a very intriguing watch, and honestly, out of all of the chronographs you had, like that was, I think, the most interesting. Yeah.
Maybe I should try to buy it back. Maybe I should find that eBay. The other thing that's interesting about it, and this is like I don't know, people are like discussing this openly or not, but like who knows what's going on with Bell and Ross? Like I don't like they're not at Watches and Wonders this year.
Yeah.
I mean, they excised all those circular watches out of their collection entirely with like no fanfare. I think last year that happened. So it's a brand that seems to be in like some, like a transition phase, let's say, but like, who knows what happens to them.
Yeah.
So could be collectible for another reason, depending on.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be.
Well, we've speculated. We've talked about chronographs. We've talked about your LA trip that you can't really talk about.
Sorry, guys.
I think this is a pretty full episode. Kat, thank you for coming on to talk about to talk about Black on Black murdered out chronographs.
Yeah,
with me, it's always a pleasure. Murdered out. That's what we'll call this.
Figure that
podcast.
How to get that in the title of this episode.
Yeah, we're trying to bring in new folks from the search. Who knows? Yeah. Thank you, Kat. Thank you to all the listeners for tuning in once again. We'll be back next week. I think next week we'll be doing a British Watchmakers Day recap, or no, it'll be a wind-up preview. Yeah,
next week is wind-up preview. Get ready.
Dallas.
Because,
coming.
Dallas is coming.
Dallas is actually there. Dallas is not moving. Dallas is there. We are coming to Dallas.
We're coming. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this is your first time. This will be your first time.
This is my first
Dallas,
time.
Right?
Yeah, this is my first time.
Yeah.
At the Dallas wind-up. I was just in Dallas with Rado like less than a month ago. So like I feel like I'm I feel like I kind of like live at that airport.
But you didn't get to really like explore much.
No, not at all. I was restricted to the hotel.
Yeah.
very, very much so. So yeah, this will be a different.
Well, we're super excited. You won't hear from the two of us next week, but yeah, we're very excited to come back to Dallas for me and to be like your first time at a wind-up fair in Dallas. I had such a great time last year. The people were so nice. Just very excited for some warm weather, honestly, more than anything, just to like be in some warmth and get out of this like crazy allergy season I'm dealing with here in Tennessee for a few days. It's gonna be quite nice.
It's funny to hear you talk about wanting to get into the warm weather. You're in south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah.
It's still freaking cold here in New Hampshire. Like it was in the 50s like for a minute over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I thought,
I know. I shouldn't complain.
Like I had my heavy winter jacket out, this morning when I went to get coffee.
We'll be able to leave it behind for 4 or 5 nights.
I'm leaving it behind for.
All
right, folks.
But so we will talk to you, when we're back from Dallas, and we'll get a good recap from both you and Zach Weiss on British Watchmakers Day.
And we can also talk about all the barbecue that we ate in Dallas.
Yeah, totally.
I'm sure. All right. Well, that's a lid on this episode. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. The podcast will be back next week, obviously, for the Dallas preview. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.
Bye.